Hey, welcome back to the Ping Pong Flix Show. My name is Chris Wong. I got a bunch of entertainment news for you today. The first one is an update from last time in regards to Keanu Reeves as Kraven. There has been an update, and it's a pretty quick one. So here we go. So this comes from Geek Vibes Nation. Says Keanu Reeves was approached for the role of Kraven, but turned it down. Yeah, it's done. We just heard about him being reached out to be Kraven the Hunter, and now he turned it down. Coming from Skylar Schuler, who is in the entertainment business, and he says, was just told Keanu Reeves was really approached for Kraven, but passed months ago. So this is not something, this is not a, saying that the Illuminati has a bad track record. Actually, they have a good track record. He is saying here the Illuminati are legit scoopers. Things change though, and we can't control that, and highly suggest sticking with them. So it was correct information that Keanu Reeves was approached for Kraven, but he passed months ago. So I'm still waiting. Hey, you know what? Maybe we can still get some Constantine out of that guy. It would have been pretty cool and exciting to see him play Kraven the Hunter, but hey, things change. Maybe he doesn't want to be part of Marvel and he's going over to DC now. I don't know. Maybe he's just want to continue the John Wick. He has the Matrix franchise, maybe a reboot of the Matrix, after this new Matrix one. Maybe there's more Matrix for him. Who knows? I can't wait to see what other projects he has in mind, definitely for his future. All right, the next thing is a game adaptation, and that is The Last of Us. Apparently, The Last of Us main stars has been cast. First, we'll start with Ellie. This is Ellie, the Hollywood Reporter, Bella Ramsey, perhaps best known for her breakout role as the fierce Lyanna Mormont in HBO's Game of Thrones, is reuniting with the Cabler to star in The Last of Us, the company's adaptation of the hit video game. So there you have it. That is your new Ellie, Ellie, the live-action version of Ellie for The Last of Us. But we're all wondering, well, who's Joel then? Who's going to get his head beaten by a golf club in the second season? And unfortunately for the actor, but not unfortunately for us, because he's phenomenal, Mandalorian. That's right, the Mandalorian star Pedro Pascal is set to headline The Last of Us, HBO's high-profile series adaptation of the Sony PlayStation franchise. Pedro Pascal is going to be Joel. Oh, I hope he makes it through season 2. But if you've played the game, you know what the hell I'm talking about. But based on the critically acclaimed video game The Last of Us, developed by Naughty Dog exclusively for the PlayStation platforms, this story takes place 20 years after modern civilization has been destroyed. Joel, played by Pedro Pascal, a hardened survivor, is hired to smuggle Ellie, Game of Thrones' Bella Ramsey, a 14-year-old girl, out of an oppressive quarantine zone. What starts as a small job soon becomes a brutal, heartbreaking journey as they both must traverse across the U.S. and depend on each other for survival. So Pascal's Joel, tormented by past trauma and failure, must trek across a pandemic-ravaged America, all the while protecting a girl who represents the last hope of humanity. And that's pretty much it for that. That's all. But that's the main cast indeed. That's the one, probably the ones you really care about. There's others as well. But as they get into it, I think this is kind of interesting. The Mandalorian. He's definitely got another series up his hands now that he's got The Mandalorian, and I'm still expecting there should be another season, right, of that. And then also he's going to have another series on both streaming services. How incredible is that? He's on Disney Plus. He's on HBO. It's amazing. This man is awesome. I love everything he's been in, even when he plays a bad guy here and there. But definitely, he played the bad guy in Equalizer too. I thought he was phenomenal in that as well. But yeah, excited to see this, as I've actually never played the franchise. I've only seen the cinematic movies of it. When you go on YouTube and say, I want to watch The Last of Us, and they just take out the cinematic portions of it. Kind of like Injustice, I've done that with that as well. So I love it how it's like very cinematic, very much like a movie. But like every game, it's hard to do it as a movie. It's much more difficult because you have to throw all that gaming experience in a way to fit on in like a 2.5 hour or 3 hour movie. You know, it's very hard. So it being a series, you can actually explore a little bit more of the story, right? And I think that's actually a better way to tell a gaming adaptation. So I'm actually kind of hoping that Metal Gear Solid would have gone out this way, you know, because Metal Gear Solid is such extensive and expansive. That really should be a series and not a movie. Same with a lot of other games that, you know, may or may not be adapted. You know, Mortal Kombat's okay. I think that could really be told in like a movie style because it had worked before. So the man Pedro Pascal getting some more work now over on HBO. Unfortunately, not for another Star Wars cast member, Mandalorian cast member. This is coming, just breaking a few hours ago. Gina Carano is no longer on The Mandalorian. This is coming from Jermaine Lussier, I would say his name, Gizmodo, right? Breaking news, Gina Carano is no longer employed by Lucasfilm, and there are no plans for her to return in the future. Gina Carano, who plays Cara Dune on The Mandalorian, will no longer be on the show. In a statement obtained by IO9, a Lucasfilm spokesperson said the following: Gina Carano is not currently employed by Lucasfilm, and there are no plans for her to be in the future. Nevertheless, her social media posts denigrating people based on their cultural and religious identities are abhorrent and unacceptable. The news comes after a day in which the hashtag Fire Gina Carano trended on Twitter for hours. The night before, the actress shared an anti-Semitic story on her Instagram. It was soon deleted, but many fans captured it and shared it on social media. That, of course, came after months of complaints about Carano's online presence, including mocking COVID mask mandates, spreading conspiracies about the United States election, liking posts disparaging the Black Lives Matter movement, and deriding pronoun usage. Carano's character, Cara Dune, was one of the main characters on the award-winning Disney Plus show, and it was assumed, though never confirmed, that she might actually have played a role in the upcoming Star Wars Rangers of the New Republic show. That apparently is not happening anymore, even if it was. So that's breaking just a few hours ago. Like I said, Gina Carano no longer playing in The Mandalorian. You know, Lucasfilm decided to cut her off. And for me, I think it's more because Lucasfilm doesn't want that type of publicity around The Mandalorian. Kind of like what Disney, it is Disney, you know, kind of like what Disney did with James Gunn for a little while, and they brought him back. So I'm just wondering if it's temporary or is this permanent, you know, because James Gunn had, you know, a lot of things happened with his pedo jokes and stuff like that, and it caused a big social media uproar, and then they got him away, and then they brought him back, you know. So it's kind of like, are they just gonna let this die down first and then bring her back, or is she canceled for good? As you know, this is part of what happens in social media. You tweet something out bad or something bad, the public uproars. The company has to do something to keep it from being a bad negativity to themselves. So that's why this happens. And obviously Disney doesn't want to be associated with this type of press right now. And but we'll see what goes on further with that. So for now, I'm guessing, and maybe even permanently, Cara Dune is gone from The Mandalorian and so on and so forth. So let's see what happens next. All right. Now, another news about, this one is pretty big, right? Because Ray Fisher was talking about Joss Whedon, right? And the whole Warner Media investigation and Justice League investigation. Now we know a few more people, or at least one more person, that it was on also a voice, lending her voice to the Justice League investigation. And it's about the Buffy cast, entire cast, not entire cast, but a lot of the cast members, the women especially, speak out against Joss Whedon. So I first learned of this from Ray Fisher himself. He says, Charisma Carpenter is one of the bravest people I know. I am forever grateful for her courage and for lending her voice to the Justice League investigation. Read her truth. Share her truth. Protect her at all costs. It is time. Accountability over entertainment. I stand with Charisma. So I had to check it out. I had to see, what is this about, right? So this is her truth here, and I'm going to read it to you. And it's definitely pretty damning. Pretty damning stuff towards Joss Whedon. For anybody who didn't believe Ray Fisher and kind of just uplifted Joss Whedon, this should bring him down quite a few pegs, maybe down into the dump. For nearly 2 decades, I have held my tongue and even made excuses for certain events that traumatized me to this day. Joss Whedon abused his power on numerous occasions while working together on the sets of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel. While he found his misconduct amusing, it only served to intensify my performance anxiety, disempower me, and alienate me from my peers. The disturbing incidents triggered a chronic physical condition from which I still suffer. It is with a beating, heavy heart that I say I coped in isolation and at times destructively. Last summer, when Ray Fisher publicly accused Joss of abusive and unprofessional behavior toward the cast and crew during reshoots on the Justice League set in 2017, it gutted me. Joss has a history of being casually cruel. He has created hostile and toxic work environments since his early career. I know because I experienced it firsthand, repeatedly. Like his ongoing passive-aggressive threats to fire me, which wreaks havoc on a young actor's self-esteem, and callously calling me fat to colleagues when I was 4 months pregnant, weighing 126 pounds. He was mean and biting, disparaging about others openly, and often played favorites, pitting people against one another to compete and vie for his attention and approval. He called me in for a sit-down meeting to interrogate and berate me regarding a rosary tattoo I got to help me feel more spiritually grounded in an increasingly volatile work climate that affected me physically. Joss intentionally refused multiple calls from my agents, making it impossible to connect with him to tell him the news that I was pregnant. Finally, once Joss was apprised of the situation, he requested a meeting with me. In that closed-door meeting, he asked me if I was going to keep it, and manipulatively weaponized my womanhood and faith against me. He proceeded to attack my character, mock my religious beliefs, accuse me of sabotaging the show, and then unceremoniously fired me the following season once I gave birth. At 6 months pregnant, I was asked to report to work at 1 a.m. after my doctor recommended shortening my work hours. Due to long and physically demanding days and the emotional stress of having to defend my needs as a working pregnant woman, I began to experience Braxton Hicks contractions. It was clear to me the 1 a.m. call was retaliatory. Man. Damn it, this motherfucking... All right. Back then, I felt powerless and alone. With no other option, I swallowed the mistreatment and carried on. After all, I had a baby on the way, and I was the primary breadwinner of my growing family. Unfortunately, all this was happening during one of the most wonderful times in new motherhood. All that promise and joy sucked right out, and Joss was the vampire. Despite the harassment, a part of me still sought his validation. I made excuses for his behavior and repressed my own pain. I have even stated publicly at conventions that I'd work with him again. Only recently, after years of therapy and a wake-up call from the Time's Up movement, do I understand the complexities of this demoralized thinking. It is impossible to understand the psyche without enduring the abuse. Our society and industry vilify the victims and glorify the abusers for their accomplishments. Remember that. Our society and industry vilify the victims and glorify the abusers for their accomplishments. The onus is on the abused with an expectation to accept and adapt to be employable. No accountability on the transgressor who sails on unscathed, unrepentant, remorseless. These memories and more have weighed on my soul like bricks for nearly half of my life. 20 fucking years. I wish I had said something sooner. I wish I had the composure and courage all those years ago, but I muted myself in shame and conditioned silence. With tears welling, I feel an overwhelming sense of responsibility to Ray and others for remaining private about my experience with Joss and the suffering it has caused me. It is abundantly evident that Joss has persisted in his harmful actions, continuing to create wreckage in his wake. My hope now, by finally coming forward about these experiences, is to create space for the healing of others who I know have experienced similar serialized abuses of power. Recently, I participated in Warner Media's Justice League investigation because I believe Ray to be a person of integrity who is telling the truth. His firing as Cyborg in The Flash was the last straw for me. Although I am not shocked, I am deeply pained by it. It troubles and saddens me that in 2021, professionals still have to choose between whistleblowing in the workplace and job security. It has taken me so long to muster the courage to make his statement publicly. The gravity of it is not lost on me. As a single mother whose family's livelihood is dependent on my craft, I'm scared. Despite my fear about its impact on my future, I can no longer remain silent. This is overdue and necessary. It is time. It is time. That was Charisma Carpenter. But that was not all. You know, other people came on board from Buffy. Amber Benson, another cast member. Buffy was a toxic environment, and it starts at the top. Charisma Carpenter is speaking truth, and I support her 100%. There was a lot of damage done during that time, and many of us are still processing it 20 plus years later. Stand with Ray Fisher, I stand with Charisma Carpenter. That's not all. Buffy herself, Sarah Michelle Gellar. While I am proud to have my name associated with Buffy Summers, I don't want to be forever associated with the name Joss Whedon. I am more focused on raising my family and surviving a pandemic currently, so I will not be making any further statements at this time. But I stand with all survivors of abuse, and am proud of them for speaking out. That's not all. Michelle Trachtenberg, who played Buffy's sister, younger sister, I might add, she was only 14. Right? I think she was like 14 when she joined the crew. Put that on her story. Sarah Michelle Gellar's thing. Note there. We know what he did behind the scenes. This is damning. She even said this. Thank you, Sarah Michelle Gellar, for saying this. I am brave enough now as a 35-year-old woman to repost this because this must be known as a teenager with his not appropriate behavior. You are my rock. What he did was very bad, but we win by surviving. Charisma Carpenter, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Michelle Trachtenberg, and Amber Benson. So you don't believe Ray Fisher, right? All right. You don't believe a young black actor who was victimized on the set of the Justice League reshoots. And he is as a voice. He's being a voice for all the other victims as well, including these women. They're women now. There were girls before. Imagine that. 20 plus years ago, Joss fucking Whedon was doing this shit. Yeah. Holy shit. The hell is he still doing in Hollywood? Now, I think he's being canceled out now. I think he's done. He's not just in Whedon. He's done. And I think he's done. You know, obviously. But I think more is going to come out here. But this is the thing, man. Like, it took it this much to finally listen. Like, I'm glad the Warner Media did this investigation and listened to many voices, especially ones, those that were 20 plus years. They had to go through that shit. They had to live with it, saying nothing, keeping quiet. Why? Why would you want to work for a system, for a company, for a director? Why would you want to go through that? Live with it. It's time. It's time to speak out. Rise together. I don't imagine this will have, you know, too much effect on their careers. I think this may hopefully uplift them so they get more projects down their line, because Joss Whedon, what he's done, and apparently I don't know what else he's done in other projects as this slowly starts to come out. He needs to be held accountable. And the rest of Warner Brothers crew, the execs, you know. But Grace Randolph had some more things to share. It's very brave of Carpenter to share her horrific experience with Joss Whedon. This will help so many recognize and confront this behavior if they unfortunately find themselves in a similar situation. Whedon no longer works with Warner Brothers after the investigation and is done in Hollywood. As for Ray Fisher, the reason he's no longer at Warner Brothers is because of his statements about Hamada. So that's a different situation than this Whedon discussion. I don't believe Fisher was let go for anything to do with Whedon. I hope Fisher finds another great role. So that story is ongoing. But there's another man, right? Fuck Joss Whedon. He's Joss Whedon. So goodbye. Get out of here. He's gone. But Geoff Johns, though, what about him? Geoff Johns is being phased out at Warner Brothers. Geoff Johns being phased out at Warner Brothers. Oh, he's only exec producing shows that he was already attached to, and you'll likely never see him again besides his name in the credits. So I think at least it's a slower process than we'd like. And I understand at a company standpoint, they don't want bad press. That's why they're not putting out publicly what they're doing. They let Joss Whedon go of nevers, but never saying why. They're letting him, they're giving him an out, you know, which to a lot of people, that's not really justice, but at least he's gone, right? Geoff Johns as well, going to be phased out as well. We already seen that kind of happen. Oh, that's hilarious, Jay. Look who's that. Look, it's my favorite exec, Toby fucking Emmerprick. So, yeah, put some horns on him. That's funny. That's hilarious, Jay. But, yeah, Geoff Johns being phased out. But I also picked this up today, and this is coming from a freelance journalist. I guess he writes for the New York Times, Science, the Daily Beast, etc. I think it's time for the comics industry to have a serious conversation about Geoff Johns. I want to make something pretty clear. I don't care in the slightest about the Snyder Cut, but speaking purely in my capacity as an observer, the question of Johns' behavior around Justice League remains a very salient one. Johns was variously CCO and president at DC Comics from 2010 to 2018, during a period when accused harassers like Eddie Berganza and Scott Lobdell were still at the company. These generally are not presented as ceremonial positions without some level of power. So when we talk about systems that protect bad actors at Warner Brothers Media and DC Comics, two organizations where Johns has apparently had some level of creative and managerial power, it's absolutely fair to ask when Johns knew and what he did. It's a labor issue. Absolutely. I mean, this is the whole point of Ray Fisher saying that Geoff Johns, he took it to Geoff Johns, and that didn't go so far, right? They didn't go so far. In fact, he enabled that abusive behavior as well. So there's definitely something going on here, not only where he was at Warner Brothers Media, but also probably at DC Comics as well. Will more come out with this? I hope so. I really hope so. This needs to be said. This needs to be out there. And definitely, I'm glad that he's only going to get, some credits on some projects, but not any true influence into it anymore, right? I hope that's the case. So, well, it's continuing. We're going to continue to update on this as much as we can, and we're going to find out a lot more, I think, as the days go by. But, all right, let's get something positive, but incredible, just the courage those women had, and Ray Fisher to continuously speak out against their aggressors. All right. HBO Max content chief talks future DC projects and Zack Snyder's Justice League. So this is coming from DC Movie Page. It's from the Hollywood Reporter or Entertainment Weekly, I believe. Casey Bloys, HBO and HBO Max content chief, talks about this. So let's go into the first one. Speaking of which, with the arrival of Zack Snyder's Justice League exclusively on HBO Max, are there any conversations about continuing that relationship with a follow-up project with Zack in the DC world? No news on the Zack Snyder world for you. I think that is a topic that is very well covered elsewhere online. But I'm happy that it's coming out because it feels like there's been a lot of anticipation. So I'm excited for it to come out, finally come out, and for fans to actually get to see it, as it feels like a long time in the making. Now, what I'm reading from here, right, is that no news is good news. I mean, he could have said, no, that's it. That's we don't have any more. But they're watching. They are waiting to see if all the chips that they had put in, $70 million worth of chips put into the Snyder Cut, would amount to something successful. So that's why we got to make it really successful. And I think we will. I think we talked about this. I think we're aiming to please ourselves and Warner Media to show them that all their investments was worth it, and that this freaking ass epic 4-hour R-rated, the biggest movie ever in terms of content, is absolutely worth it. The biggest superhero movie ever is going to make them big bucks. They're going to get a lot of subscribers. They're going to get a lot of views, a lot of attention on this thing. Even if Warner Brothers tries to suppress it, they can't, because we have spoken and we will continue to speak up about it. And we're going to make this successful. So they're watching and waiting. Casey Bloys is like, we're gonna watch it. We're gonna wait and see what comes up with this, as we are now the biggest marketers of Zack Snyder's Justice League, probably blowing every other marketing company in that firm for any other movie at this moment. And I think even look at the Joker trend, man. It's on CNN. The People magazine talked about Jared Leto's Joker. It's amazing. It's huge. And I think Grace is right. I think Jared Leto is the key. It seems to make a lot of traction for Zack Snyder's Justice League. So I think that's what is trying to be is being said right here. As about the other stuff, there's a lot of brand confusion in the DC world. You've got movies, the TV-related spin-offs, then stuff from DC Universe, the CW content, and then Max originals like Green Lantern from Greg Berlanti and Justice League Dark from J.J. Abrams. Is there an objective here? I just started to get involved with DC content in August. Peacemaker is one of the first shows I greenlit and one of the first shows coming out in January 2022. It's a great example of what HBO Max can do with DC content and what we're producing at our level. We have been seeing DC content on TV do thus far. It's been one of Warner Media CEO Ann Sarnoff's priorities to organize the DC world for exactly what you're talking about, to make sure that the universe is logical and makes sense. She talks about the flywheel, that the movies speak to the TV shows that speak to the movies, that it's all connected. There's a lot of work going on in that at DC and Warner Brothers that is very much something that Anne has made a priority and the company is doing. It's one of the things in terms of Warner Media today versus Time Warner 5 years ago. I have regular conversations now with Warner Brothers film chief Toby Emmerich and DC content chief Jim Lee. We talk about all the things in ways that never would have been discussed before. That's probably how you got a little DC over here, a little DC over there, etc. The idea going forward is that we're talking with one voice about the DC universe. It's a really valuable world to have, and we want to make sure we're using it correctly. Okay, so a lot of opportunity for DC fans, he says, and definitely I would have to agree. The one thing I find a little kind of interesting here is when he says that he greenlit Peacemaker. That's good. I mean, if it's other than Walter Amada, and maybe Walter Amada can only greenlight movies, I think there is an out if Walter Amada is still there for Zack Snyder to do something, you know, because maybe the first movie, yeah, with all the different contract issues and trying to pay people in terms of TV episodic rather than a movie, that may have been difficult. But say season 2, instead of Justice League 2, what if it's season 2, Justice League season 2, season 3? Then maybe they can make it into a series instead in terms of a show, it being a show. And then they can bypass Walter Amada and have Casey Bloy here, who greenlit a show, a DC-centric show called Peacemaker. He could greenlight the Justice League 2, season 2, and season 3. Or episodic, you know, they could be Justice League Nightmare, and it has 2 seasons to it. So that could be another way that they could bypass some, you know, individuals over there at Warner Brothers who don't want to see this go on. And I think it may be better to spread out that budget of that way in any case, and also, you know, drive up engagement and interest to that. I think it's certainly a possibility if Zack Snyder would love to continue that way, right? So that's what I'm seeing here. And definitely it does give us hope that there could be exceptional content on HBO Max in terms of DC and things in ways that hopefully a better work environment over there. And I like it. I like what he's saying here. And I think it'll go a long way if done properly and done in ways that could be, you know, truly exciting for DC fans. All right, well, that is it for today. Quite a nice bit of information and news for you. Definitely I love to give it, but I'm excited. I'm like, Zack Snyder's Justice League. It's like 36 days now. What is it? 36 days now till we get to see that movie, but only a few more days. A few more days until the full trailer. So let's make that Sunday pop, right? Hashtag Zack Snyder's Justice League, hashtag Snyder Cut. Let's make it trend, and it will. Let's get excited for Zack Snyder's Justice League. Let's make it big. The biggest thing that has ever come out on HBO Max. Ever. Let's do it. All right. Thank you so much for watching. Like I said, if you absolutely love this daily dose of entertainment, news, and content, please click the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell, and keep this dog light on. And I'll see you next time. Bye.